stock tanks and how to choose the right stock tank for a cold plunge. Stock tanks are a popular choice for doing cold plunges because they're cost effective, they're readily available, and they're upgradable. You can do just a basic setup with a stock tank and fill it with ice and water, change the water out weekly. You can also upgrade to put a filter on it. You can put a chiller on it. You can build an encasement like I have around mine. Or you could just leave it bare and leave it sit outside, especially if you're in an area where in the winter months it stays cold and you don't have to add a chiller. So there's lots of other options out there. You can buy a ready-made cold plunge, and those are going to run you anywhere from $3,000 to $7,000 depending on which one you get. You can buy the inflatable little rubber ones on Amazon. I think they're like $150. You can do a number of different, you can use your bathtub. But the reason I like stock tanks is because you can start out with just a stock tank. I did, and then upgrade it. I added a filter. Actually, I added a small filter. Then I added a large household filter. Then I said, hey, you know, I'd like to have a chiller on this thing, so I added a chiller. Then I added ozone. So you can take this thing from 0 to hero, or you could just stick with it until you feel like you're committed to doing it long term. That's what I did. Once I had hit the 30-day mark, I'm like, okay, I've done this 30 days in a row. I'm going to stick this out. This is part of my life. This is what I'm doing. And I'm going to build an enclosure, and I'm going to add a filter. It's a great low-cost way. I'm talking anywhere between $80 and $100 to get started with a cold plunge stock tank. All right, so let's get into some of the details on how to choose it. I went to my local Tractor Supply store and a Rural King, a Lowe's, a Menards to try to find what tank would work best. There's really three main options. There's the Rubbermaid versions. Those are structural foam. They're made very consistent with a mold, so the size is going to be the same from one to the next. And there's also the galvanized steel option. The galvanized steel option, while it's also inexpensive, they're relatively inconsistent in size because they stack them one inside the other, and they call them 100-gallon, but they can vary as much as 2 to 4 inches in width and length, just because they make these things in a number of sizes so they can ship them together and stacked inside of each other. So there's that. The other thing is they're going to have sealant on the inside, some sort of silicone sealant. Eventually, you're probably going to have to replace that. So they're not the best option, but they are an option. Then there's the last version, which is an LDPE rubberized material. It's flexible. It's similar to the Rubbermaid. It's made by a different company called Tough Stuff. It's another good option. It's consistent in size. It only has 1 point of potential failure, which is the drain, very similar to the Rubbermaid. It's actually a brass drain where the Rubbermaid has its own bulkhead union with cap. So as well, the galvanized tank will have a drain option as well. So there's just multiple failure points on the galvanized. I don't love the galvanized look. I don't love the galvanized material. The other thing is, if you're going to build an enclosure for this thing, you want something that has dimensions that are known. And there's a lot of build plans out there for Rubbermaids as well as even the Tough Stuff. I haven't seen one that's readily available for the galvanized. Plus, we've all seen the Christmas Story. If you're leaving this thing outside, that metal edge, if you get some wet skin on that, it's going to stick. Not that I'm going to lick it like they did in the Christmas Story, but it's just, if it's that cold and you get your hand on that, it's not going to be good. So choosing a stock tank to fit you, it's going to be pretty personalized. I have the 100-gallon and the 150-gallon. I've also sat in the galvanized tanks. The galvanized tanks, I am a little squished in on the sides. I have bigger shoulders than most, so it's a little bit tighter of a fit. The 100 and the 150-gallon Rubbermaid work, as well as the Tough Stuff works really well. I'm 5'11", 204 pounds. If that gives you any indication as to whether you'll fit in these things or not. My wife, she's 130 pounds, 5'4" and maybe 3/4, and she has plenty of space to move around in this. The 150 kind of swallows her up a little bit. So if you're sharing the tub, you might want to keep that into consideration as well. I'd go to Tractor Supply or one of these stores and hop in them. I did it. I actually went to Tractor Supply. It's a great conversation starter. People are like, what are you doing getting into a stock tank made to feed horses and cattle? But it's a very easy way, especially if they're dry. You can hop in them, give them a feel, figure out which one might work for you, and then purchase that one. The size does matter as far as keeping it cold. So the larger the tank, the more ice you're going to need if you're going to do this manually. If you're doing it with a chiller, you just need to make sure that you understand that the chiller has limitations on how cold it can keep it if it's not going to be insulated. If you're going to insulate it, that's another layer on top of this that you might not need a 1/2 horsepower chiller. A 1/3 horsepower, 1/4 horsepower might actually be fine. I have a 1/3 horsepower chiller on this unit, and it's 100-gallon. It's not yet completely insulated with spray foam, but it will be here shortly. And it has no problem keeping this thing at like 43 degrees. Now it's in my barn, but the barn in the summer does get quite warm. So something to keep in mind as far as when you choose a size, make sure that you're going to be able to commit to adding the ice or the ice blocks, if you will, to keep it cold. If you're doing this manually, you're gonna take several 10-pound bags. I'm talking 4 to 5 10-pound bags just to get it down below the 59-degree mark that you need it for cold plunging. If you've got ice blocks in a freezer like I did, you can get these 10-pound blocks of ice and put them in there. That's a heck of a lot easier. So just some things to keep in mind when you're choosing the size. Obviously, an 80 or 100-gallon stock tank is going to be easier to chill down than 150, but you might need that extra space to feel comfortable and get in there. If you surf Amazon or the internet, you can find a ton of different cold plunge options. There are the inflatable, full inflatable ones that look like these portable hot tubs. There are ones that are relatively inexpensive, $50, $75, $150 for a circular, almost barrel-like portable plunge. The options abound. The stock tank is beautiful because it's not only inexpensive, it's upgradable. You can future-proof this. So you can do, like I said, you can build an enclosure, add a filter, add a chiller, add an ozonator. You can even add one of these covers. This is almost a hot tub-like cover that I've got that covers this. This is great. You can also DIY a cover for these. You can have a plywood cover with some sort of foam insulation underneath it. They also make, as you'll see on the 150 back here, they make just a drape cover to keep the leaves and debris out. If you're keeping this thing outside, that's a great option, especially in the fall and winter time when it's already cold out. So stock tanks are great because you can upgrade them. If you don't like it and you're not into cold plunging long term, you can turn around and sell it. You can turn it into a planter bed, a compost bed, whatever you want. There's a lot of uses for these things. So I recommend tractorsupply.com, ruralking.com, amazon.com has them too, but I will say they are quite a bit more expensive than some of your local places. Menards, depending on where you're at in the country, sometimes Menards will have them as well. So I'll put some links below as places to get them, the pricing. Keep in mind, a lot of these places price match too. I know that when I bought mine from Tractor Supply, the lady actually told me, she's like, we match prices, so if you want to get one here, you can match the price. So if you've built one or you have one, what are your preferences? Have you used a Rubbermaid? Have you used something else that I just totally didn't cover? I've looked around, we even talked about using garbage cans. Some of these big plastic garbage cans that are 100, 150 gallons. Getting in and out of them seemed a little precarious, so I didn't really include them here. But is there something I missed? Is there another option that I don't know about? Leave it in the comments below. Folks, if you like the information I'm sharing here, please like and subscribe to my channel. It really helps. As a new channel, I can use all the help I can get for visibility, and YouTube pays attention to when you hit that like button and when you hit subscribe. So thanks so much for doing that. I do plan on covering some other health and fitness topics like supplements and protein and other ways you can recover from workouts. So thanks so much for watching. Catch you on the next one.